So, starting off, I've actually been given the topic of the future of digital marketing. Now, as I sort of mentioned earlier,
Technical problem here.
it wouldn't be a tech fest without technical problems, would it? That's right. Digital marketing, or the future of digital marketing, is an incredibly dry topic, especially when you can compare it to topics like emerging technologies and will machines replace my job one day, and especially for the students in here, that could be incredibly relevant. Or even more so, will machines take my life one day? And if you don't know who he is, then that's your homework, kids. Now, the first reason why I actually picked this topic to talk on is really quite a dry reason. It's because I work in it, right? So it seems to make sense to actually pick a topic that you do work in. The second reason happens to be that it's a field that I love. It's a field that I like to talk about, I like to explain to people, because it's incredibly powerful to understand this well, especially for you young people out there. Now, the third reason, and this might be a bit of a pro tip for all the students, is we're talking about the future, which means I can actually say whatever the heck I want to say, and there's very little anyone can actually do about it because no one's going to prove me wrong for a number of years. Now, the last reason, and this is a bit more of a sober one, is because over the next 2 to 3 years, if businesses navigate this field wrongly, they simply will not exist in the next 5. This is a critical industry to understand. So great are these changes that the Gartner Research Institute predicted that by 2017, this is next year, that digital marketing spending, the amount of money spent worldwide on digital marketing will surpass IT-related spending. And if you're in business, you sort of know how great that expense actually is. To put it simply, we're seeing a fundamental change in the way that businesses relate to consumers, which is changing rapidly all the time. So, as a quick disclaimer, I actually have to admit that I hate these sort of talks with a passion. They're usually some sort of speculative ramble mixed with a few of these things to give you a sense of credibility that I know what I'm talking about. Usually then followed by statements a bit like this, all for the purpose of driving you to despair and making you feel that you're going to end up a bit like that. With the sole purpose, just before you absolutely turn to despair, dropping a few inspirational quotes, a few statistics here and there, before making you leave this room with a feeling a bit more like this. Now, I have to admit here that this talk won't be any different. However, we will be breaking the doom into 2 sections. The first one is we're going to be talking about what digital marketing is like now. Like what things are actually influencing digital marketing at the moment, what technology, or what impact current technologies are having on this sphere. The other section is going to be what impact are emerging technologies going to be having on digital marketing. Hopefully at the end of this we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, as I'm sure Andrew will pull me up. And so the first question is, what is digital marketing? Now, I don't sort of want to bring up a concept of a definition of marketing, because I'm sure that you all have some idea of what marketing is, right? Like research and advertising, it's pretty straightforward. Now, digital marketing, when we think about it, is really just a subset of marketing. That is marketing that is done through digital technologies, in particular, but not exclusively, the internet. So, common things which you associate with digital marketing, and I'm sure that we're also sick of the millions of emails that plague our inbox every single day because we signed up to that one site one time, right? But types of things which are usually associated with digital marketing are websites and SEO and SEM and display ads and text messaging, and they're sort of, I want you to think of these as digital marketing version 1. They're digital marketing as it currently is. Now, it's not that they're going to become irrelevant or replaced in the future, anytime soon that is, but they're going to become a smaller part of a much, much, much bigger picture. Now, before we go on, we really need to understand what the advantages currently are for digital marketing as opposed to conventional marketing methods. Now, when dealing with conventional marketing, we are in effect dealing with the masses, right? So we're finding out what the average wants to see or what the average person relates to. And so you structure your products and your promotions around the average. Now, when we think of this, there are great similarities between people. Like, I mean, how many people here, especially kids, want an iPhone, right? Okay, no hands, all right. Tough crowd. Like, conventional marketing works because we are similar in some ways, but at the same time, there are things that make us just a little bit unique. And when we think of marketing and targeting, we need to remember that if we target the average, our marketing campaigns are in effect inefficient. This brings us to the very first distinct advantage of digital marketing as opposed to conventional marketing means, and that is targeting. Like when you display, for example, when you display a billboard ad entering into the town, so I don't know what billboards are showing around the place, I don't drive that often. Macca's, say for example, we put up a sign for Macca's, right? Now, in effect, McDonald's is paying for every single person who drives past that ad to see their billboard. Now, there might only be 10 or 20%, or well, it's McDonald's, probably closer to about 70%, Australians like their Macca's, who are actually interested in that ad, but at the same time, they're paying for every single view of that ad. Digital marketing, in comparison, is quite the opposite. We can actually target ads based on what people are looking for, but even more than that. I'm sure you've probably experienced this on some level where you've gone to Gumtree or you've gone to eBay or you've gone to a site and searched for, I don't know, shoes or computers or it'd be computers if it was me because I'm a geek. But for the next week or two, you've been seeing those ads absolutely everywhere you go on the internet. Now that's just done through sort of tracking cookies. That technology has been around for years and years and years, and that's not anything particularly exciting. Digital marketing goes even beyond that and enables us to target geographical, behavioural, demographic information that through other marketing means this isn't possible, right? So in effect, the mass benefits on our ROI for our marketing budgets just skyrocket. Ideally, the goal in a marketer is to deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. And the only way that is actually possible is to know every single thing about you. So this brings us to the point of data. Now, if you're young, pay particular attention because this is going to be a changing world in ways which will absolutely terrify you. But data about what you say, and that is data about you. As marketers, we want to know absolutely every single thing there is to know about you. Your gender, your age, your likes, your dislikes, your hair colour, your preferred car, your preferred house, your preferred town that you live in, the town that you currently live in. We want to know everything about you. And the reason why is because we can exploit that. If we know every single thing about you, we can actually use that to sell to you. Now, for example, and this is probably a really bad example, but say for example we knew what type of hair dye you like to colour your hair and how often you dye your hair and what brand of dye you use to dye your hair. We could, in effect, actually target advertisement around you to show up only when you're about to go dye your hair with that product that you already dye your hair with, or maybe a slightly more expensive one, or maybe a different product which is slightly more expensive that we really want you to buy. Suddenly, trivial information about you that you think is sort of inconsequential choices becomes extremely relevant for us to know. Now, this is a pretty weird example, but the scenario isn't actually that uncommon. Remember when we said at the start of this talk, we were talking about what digital marketing is currently like, and we're going to move into what digital marketing will eventually be like. This is actually still well and truly in the realm of what digital marketing is currently like. Some of the ways in which a marketer might do this is to track every interaction that you have with their emails that they send you, with a website that they send you. Well, one of the things that we particularly like doing with smaller clients is actually videoing you while you're on a website. So once you log into a website, we can actually see all your interactions with that website. And once you enter in your details to log into that website or to buy something on that website, we know exactly who you are, what your previous purchase history was like, what age you are, what place you live in, and we can actually start targeting ads around you. Now, this profiling information is extremely important. And essentially what it amounts to is that George Orwell's book did not go far enough. We're about to put it to shame. So this brings us to the really important point here, is that data matters. Data is important to the point that big companies around the world are spending billions and billions of dollars into understanding, collecting and analysing this data on levels that were never before possible. So data matters. Thank you for listening to my talk. No, I'm joking. We'll keep going. One key example of a company storing and collecting your data and then analysing it with the possibility of selling it later on is Facebook. Who here has Facebook? I love it, right? It's a great service. We all use it. But when you think about it, Facebook already has access to all your age information, all your gender information, all your likes, all your dislikes. Constantly it's feeding this data from you. You just thought that they were doing something nice, providing a nice free service, right? But they have access to your geographical information, your behavioural information. But this is only the beginning. Facebook already has the ability to tailor ads to you based on what you post. So for example, this example might not work too well, but so for example, in a few years' time, if you have a really big night out and you go back on Facebook and talk about your party and talk about that night out, Facebook already has the technology to tailor an ad around that post. So if you say you have a really big night out, you might actually start seeing ads the next day for aspirin and Disprin and Baroccas and things which make the next day just a little bit more pleasant. But this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. Facebook, through a process of machine learning, which I'm sure Lawrence will talk to you a little bit about in the previous talk, as part of their FAIR project, has the ability to look at your photos and look at your videos and tell exactly what is happening in them and exactly what is in them, and even use face recognition on them. Right? Creepy stuff, right? For example, if you upload a photo of yourself pregnant to Facebook, this is just a hypothetical now. If you upload a photo of yourself pregnant, not me, but someone else maybe, Facebook could theoretically actually guess the due date for that baby, sell that information, and then start advertising to you based on what they might think is the expected due date, just for one photo. They actually have the ability to start doing that. Now, this might seem a little bit intrusive and raise a number of privacy issues, and I don't expect you to actually take my word for it. So here's a video.
We have a big project at Facebook called M, which is sort of a personal digital assistant kind of a personal assistant project, which is sort of a combination of humans and AI, if you want, where the AI kind of watches over the shoulder of the people and kind of learns to answer questions from them or solve problems for people. And this was just rolled out to kind of a limited number of people a couple months ago. Can you play video 5, please?
Is there a baby?
Yes.
What is the man doing?
Typing.
Is the baby sitting on his lap?
Yes.
Are they smiling?
Yes.
Is there a baby in the photo?
Yes.
Where is the baby standing?
Bathroom.
What is the baby doing?
Brushing teeth.
What game is being played?
Soccer.
Is someone kicking the ball?
Yes.
What color is the ball?
Yellow.
What game is the dog playing?
Frisbee.
What color is the dog?
Black.
Is the dog wearing a collar?
Yes.
What is the cat sniffing?
Banana.
Where's the cat?
On bed.
What color is the cat?
Black and white.
What color are the bananas?
Green.
Okay, so what you saw is completely automatic. It's not fake. It's a real system.
So I want you to keep in mind here that Facebook has currently about 1.5 billion users worldwide, which it can be learning from. 1.5 billion users worldwide, which it can be sampling this sort of behavioral information from and then basing advertising and marketing around that. What we're seeing here is data sampling on gigascales, massive, massive, massive amounts of data sampling. Facebook will, in effect, eventually know you better than what your friends will know you, better than what your psychologist will know you, and better than what your wife will probably even know you. For some of you, that might not be that hard, but that's bad. You should take her on a date. Now, this is all well and fine when it's restricted to a computer screen, right? I mean, we're fine with Facebook advertising to us if we jump on Facebook and use their services, and we kind of expect to see the odd ad here and there. And we don't really mind because we're using their service and we like their product. But the question is, what happens when this sort of advertising, tailored advertising, moves beyond the screen, beyond the computer screen, beyond your tablet and your smartphone and your smartwatch and your smart headphones and whatever else is smart in a couple of years' time, into the physical world? Earlier we used the analogy or the idea of billboards being static, right, and not being tailored towards what you react to or what you want to see. But what happens if they actually can target their audience? We're currently seeing here what is called the emergence of the Internet of Everything, or the Internet of Things. Now, this is more or less what the name implies. Like, it's not a tricky concept to get your head around. The name is more or less the description here. Now, imagine every single electronic device you own connected to the internet one way or another, and then connected to each other electronic device you own through the internet. For example, your car could know where you drive and then tell you the cheapest fuel locations based on your driving habits and patterns. Your fridge could automatically order milk. And okay, this isn't new stuff. We already know this technology already exists and it's already out there, but it's becoming much more prevalent, and it's moving beyond the conventional devices like cars and fridges, conventional internet devices like cars and fridges. That's weird. We're living in the future, guys. To things like pot plants and to agriculture and to devices which we've never actually seen hooked up to the internet before, because this data, which beforehand couldn't be analysed or was just too great to be collected, can now actually be made sensical. So the Internet of Everything and the Internet of Things is the idea that everything you own would be able to track you and collect more and more data. An article put out by Cisco estimated that by 2020, they're expecting more than 50 billion devices worldwide to be connected to the Internet of Things. Now, to give you an idea, we're currently at a population of around 7 billion. So just take how many devices that is and distribute it amongst all the people, right? Now, Morgan and Stanley released a separate study on this, saying that they estimated as high as 75 billion devices worldwide connected to the Internet of Everything. That's 75 billion devices with the ability to track every single thing you do. Privacy is going to be an issue. Now, once you factor in a form of facial recognition or a wearable that has a GPS in it or something like that, it isn't impossible to suggest that digital billboards could also change their messaging simply based on who's looking at it. So, for example, one example of this happening could be you could be out for your morning run, right? And halfway through your run, you see a digital billboard advertising to you that particular brand that you like listening to while you run. The new album that's just come out. This sort of technology actually isn't that unfeasible. And you might say at this point that, well, they'll bring up privacy concerns, but privacy, like everything, is going to have a price. We will sell our personal data and our private data for the sake of services. We've already seen sites like Facebook and Google and YouTube provide us with a whole heap of free content and free services for the sake of taking our information from us and being able to sell back to us. So what does this mean for businesses and consumers? And sorry to the schools here, this is really targeted more at businesses than consumers. So if you want to fade out now and pretend that you're doing something else, now's the time, all right? This is true. Until policy puts the brakes on this marketing, it means a few things. The first thing to note is that it's not all doom and gloom for SMEs or small and medium enterprises. It's not all doom and gloom. These technologies that we've discussed so far have made the cost of marketing decrease and the returns and possible returns of investment increase for small businesses over the past decade, like nothing else before. Like, it's now possible for small and medium enterprises and even startups to have customer insights that large corporates previously didn't have access to. For consumers, it's also not that bad a news, because to keep your loyalty, businesses are going to have to be fighting for your love more and more, both in terms of more creative marketing and in terms of delivering you better and better products. Like we've seen the case with Nokia, that on large business scales, ultimately there is no loyalty. Businesses will continually have to fight for your love and your approval. So great will the competition be for your attention and affection that will see a massive increase in multimedia communication on the internet. I was reading an article the other day that said that by 2018, 80% of all online traffic will be comprised of video. Now, this isn't that hard to imagine, and I have to be honest here, I actually don't think that the question is whether or not by 2 years' time, 80% of our online traffic will be comprised of video. I think the question is, what type of video? We've already seen in the previous talk, the Microsoft HoloLens, right? We've seen Google Glass come out. We've seen all the possibilities of VR technology. We've also seen Nikon just release a new 360-degree camera at an affordable price to people. Like, what type of video is actually going to be the question, rather than will or not video be that important? And through technologies like the NBN, like 5G networks, and the Internet of Things, we can actually expect this content to be reaching us in more and more ways and constantly bombarding us. However, unfortunately, the story doesn't stop there. So far, we've discussed the part where machines are going to be collecting more and more of our data. They're going to be able to analyze that data on their own, rather than a human having to go in and make sense of it, right? We can even imagine machines optimizing, or they optimize ads displayed to us based on our history and our buying options. But the question is creative process, right? So with marketing, we want to have two sides of this. We want to know exactly what we want to know about people. We want to have that personal information. We want to have that research there, but we also want to deliver this or our ads and our promotions to you in more creative ways. Now, this song that I'm about to play you is by an artist by the name of Emily Howell. Have a quick listen. I'll put a pause on it there because I think we're running out of time. But the really interesting thing to note about Emily, and I'm not just trying to play you music for the sake of playing you music, it's that Emily is actually a computer. Emily can nearly write an infinite amount of scores, and to such a high quality that human musical scholars cannot tell her music apart from human composers. Now, the really crazy thing about Emily is that she was born in the 90s. This is over 20 years ago, guys, that she actually came about. Now, it's not that impossible to imagine machines actually getting more and more involved in the creative process beyond music. Like, music's just one aspect of the creative process. Now, this is sort of getting off into the speculative, we're going to have machines tailoring ads and creating new content for us area, but it doesn't actually help us so much now where we're a small business or a consumer and we're going, how does this actually affect me? So the takeaway from this is is it too late to actually, if you're a small business or if you're a medium-sized business, is it actually too late to get involved in digital marketing or stepping up my digital marketing? Now, I'd like to answer this that never before in history can you get as much bang for your buck in your marketing. Digital marketing has a huge ROI when compared to conventional marketing methods. Right, now is the time to be investing in website content and pushing out interesting content to your consumers. Now is the time to be investing in video marketing for your consumers. I was listening to a TED Talk the other day, and I really wish I could remember who was actually speaking. But the speaker actually got up in the room and said, put up your hand if your business has a website already. And to be honest, if this question was asked in Australia, according to the latest e-census report, about 40%, nearly half the room would have actually raised their hand and said, yeah, our business doesn't actually have a website. At which the speaker turned around and said, look, if you put up your hand, it's over for you. In 3 years' time, you will not exist. Now, that's a pretty sharp statement, and without actually remembering who the speaker is, I don't want to sort of come across too hard on this, but I respectfully disagree. Apple wasn't the first to make the iPhone. It wasn't the first to make a tablet. Sorry, it was the first to make the iPhone. It wasn't the first to make a smartphone. It wasn't the first to make a tablet. Microsoft wasn't the first to make an operating system. Tesla wasn't the first to make an electric car. Nikon and Canon weren't the first to make digital cameras. The key to doing digital marketing, like any form of business, isn't about being the first, but about being better, about delivering to people what they want. And the opportunity for businesses to do that now, even in rural areas and even smaller businesses, is now made possible through digital marketing. Now, the future's uncertain for sure, but at the moment we can say that websites, email marketing, SMS marketing, all these things are actually still relevant technologies for small, medium enterprises. So that sort of concludes the talk. And I think we've got a little bit of time for questions, do we, Andrew?
Okay, so just a big round of thanks for David. So we've got time for some questions. I just wanted to make a couple of comments because it was a very interesting talk. I sort of disagree when David said it was relevant for just businesses because I think, well, I commented we're all consumers. And I think as well, particularly for young people, we've got a lot here, we're all digital marketers, but we market ourselves. So we market ourselves on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, and the target audience is just different. It's our friends rather than consumers, but we're all sophisticated consumers and we all understand the basic concepts of digital marketing. And I think getting a strong marketing strategy with a strong online presence is just fundamental for a business. I mean, I'd like David to elaborate a little bit more on that because I know as a consumer, if I can't find a website for something that I'm looking for, I'm not going to go hunting for that business. And if I find a bad website, that's even more off-putting because you assume that it's a bad business. And I would sort of say, well, that's a really strong message to take away. I don't know if you can just sort of reinforce that, David.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One sort of anecdotal story on that, we had a business with an online store, right? And they were selling a particular product and the amount of sales that they were making on average each month was 0. Now, the product was the same as every other product out there that they were selling and all the same as their competitors. The prices were extremely competitive. The service was really excellent. However, the design of the site itself meant that people didn't trust the store. The store itself wasn't selling largely because of the design, partly because it wasn't ranking on Google that well, but even the traffic that was getting through promotion and through paid ads wasn't selling because it wasn't able to build that customer confidence that what they were buying was from a decent, reputable site. So the case absolutely exists to, if you do digital marketing, you've got to do it well. You've got to work out the design well. You've got to make sure that you have ways for people to actually get there. So many website designers these days, they'll put up a website, right, and they'll treat it a bit like a business card. Like, it's up, it's good, people will find it, and that's just not the case, and we all know that. Like, I think it's 65% of people will click on the first 3 links that show up in a Google search page, and a very, very few amount of people ever make it to the second page. Now, when we're thinking of competition, we need to actually think of how people are actually going to be getting to our websites. And that's absolutely important. And so things like social media, things like advertising yourself, as well as, you know, if you're running a business, are absolutely essential. I don't know if that sort of answers the question,
Yeah,
yeah.
very much does. Has anyone got any questions for David on digital marketing or Facebook or Instagram?
I've got a question.
Yep.
Okay, now I'd like you to just tell me what are the advantages of Armidale and how should we market it to attract high-tech people and businesses here?
Sure, so just to rephrase the question, how we actually market Armidale to attract more businesses here?
Especially in the metro area.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really interesting question, and we're actually working with a business at the moment with that exact challenge on how to actually attract more high-end businesses out here. I have to admit that already the presence of the NBN has made so many tech industries in this town possible to survive out here. Our business itself wouldn't exist in this town if it wasn't for the NBN and technologies like the NBN. It wouldn't be possible. It would be in the Sydney metropolitan area. I actually think that, like all marketing, we need to be pushing what the value is or what the benefit is to a business. We can't just say, here's another location, but we need to be saying that, you know, we need to be talking about Armidale strong points. One, we've got excellent culture out here. We've got an awesome lifestyle. I spent 5 minutes in the car, not 5 hours. My sister-in-law drove to work the other day and she said, oh, you know, traffic was pretty bad. It took me 3 hours to get to work. I mean, I don't mind 40 minutes of driving, but 3 hours stuck in traffic, crawling on 5 k's per hour isn't a lot of fun. I think what we need to be advertising is these sort of benefits. Like, yes, we can run IT-related industries out here because of networking technologies like the NBN that otherwise we couldn't have, and actually push this lifestyle, push these benefits of, you know, really a smaller world. It might be a great distance between us and metropolitan areas, but really, as far as, you know, communications are concerned now, there's no difference. Armidale's got excellent infrastructure in terms of networking, if that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that as well, because I'm an example of that. I relocated to Armidale just over 12 months ago from Sydney. I still work for my company that's actually based in Boston in America, with a Sydney office, so I can connect to both those locations seamlessly from my home in Armidale, so I've just been able to continue working with my job. Now, I came to Armidale because I know about the region. My wife is from Armidale, so I know that it's a great place to live. I know that it's got good transport links. I know there's a vibrant community. But we need to get that message out more broadly, because people in metropolitan areas lump country towns into a basket where they just think it's a backwater, there's not much goes on, it's the middle of nowhere, and we really need to sell ourselves. Just like we sell ourselves on Facebook to our friends, Armidale needs to get that sort of presence where we're selling our town and making it broadly known, because I think Armidale has got some unique things. We've got the university, we've got very strong education, we've got good transport links, and we've got the NBN. And I think these are real competitive advantages, but we've got to make sure people know about them, and that's the marketing. Yeah.
I mean, there's two sides of this coin, right? One, we want to actually attract businesses to move out here, and the other side of it too is we actually want to attract the workers who are involved in those businesses out here. And I think the fact that the average house price in Sydney now is over $1 million. The air pollution in the centre of Sydney is horrid. We've got distinct advantages for living in the country and regional areas. How that marketing gets out there just really needs to be strategised and thought through a lot better, and maybe even incentivised. There's no reason why we can't have world-class leading IT industries out here. I was in America last year up in Wisconsin, and in this tiny little hippie town with 67,000 people in the town, but it was really spread out, middle of nowhere. And I was walking along the street, and I turned the corner, and right in front of me was the headquarters of Pepsi United States. And this building would have stretched for about 5 city blocks. It was absolutely enormous. Now, they can do that because of fast networking technologies, because of modern transport. There's no reason why we can't see a similar case happening here in Australia.
Yes.
One question. You and a lot of others push Facebook as having commercial value. I ask a simple question. If it's got commercial value, why hasn't it made money?
That's a really good question. I'm sure many people at Facebook are stressing over the same issue. Facebook, just so everyone knows, Facebook actually has low ROI or low return on investment for corporate advertising compared to other marketing streams. Compared to like Google Ads, for example, like the ads that you get when you search for something, Facebook's incredibly inefficient. I think, this is just my suspicion, my take on it, I think that Facebook, when people use Facebook, they're using it for a particular reason. They're using it because they want to follow up with friends. They want to, post about their own life. They want to, you flick up that photo of how awesome your holiday is to make the rest of your friends jealous, right? You're there for a reason. You're not there to actually be advertised to. Now, does that mean that all advertising doesn't work on Facebook? No. And we've personally seen really effective Facebook marketing go out. But I think that it has to take a very different flavour to what normal corporate advertising takes, if that makes sense. So having a banner ad to say how good a laptop is might not be as effective on Facebook as friends posting about how good their new laptop is or how much they love something, if that makes sense. Right? We want to hear how different people relate to those products. And so I think the key to Facebook in particular is just how it's being done, not whether or not it works, if that makes sense. Now, Facebook is pouring billions and billions of dollars into rectifying this and working on it, because it is a big problem for them. They've got the data there. They've bought a company called Deep Learning not that long ago for the sake of learning more about their consumers. But if anything at the moment, Facebook is an effective harvesting platform for consumer data, even if it's not the best advertising platform to work on.
And even though it doesn't make money, its current valuation is in the billions.
It's a little bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind owning it.
Yeah. So, you can argue whether they're smart people or not, but certainly the stock market and industry believes that Facebook, because of the data that it holds, it is a very valuable company. How they monetize that is